On this episode of Team Building Saves the World.
Can you be the most present as well? Or you can be the most present, but do you have a plan?
Right.
If you're striving for perfection, it's more likely that you're seeing something and your mind is completely focused on something that's external. And because you don't have to do the 80 hours, you don't have to be in a position where you're miserable. You have influence, and most people don't think they do. Everybody has to do that exploration for themselves and saying, oh, what matters most to you?
Hello, team. It's me, your old friend Rich Renansland, host of Team Building Saves the World. And today, wherever you are listening, I want you to do something with me. I want you to breathe in and out. And again, in and out. Because we're going to be talking about being present in both your life and corporate leadership with former engineer and Wall Street executive turned yoga teacher, Mitesh Kapadia. But first, I need to share some love with all of my supporters at Team Bonding. If your team is ready to experience teamwork through the power of play, then visit teambonding.com to learn more. Now, team, let's be present as we talk about authentic leadership and heart-centered presence with Mitesh Kapadia. Mitesh Kapadia, thank you so very much for coming on, my friend. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you again, Rich. I appreciate being here. And, on a day where it's just beautiful out, and for me over here in California, where I'm based out of, it's just nice to, as I'm looking out in my window, to be here.
We are heading into 4th of July weekend. It's very, very hot on the East Coast. How is everything out on the West?
Oh, we're up in the mountains here, and so it's nice and good breeze. It's perfect weather. You can be out, and even the water temperature, like when you step into the water, it's like,
oh man,
such a pleasant experience.
This is the look of jealousy on my face and sweat on my forehead because it's very warm right now. But let's get started. Let's talk about you. Nobody wants to hear about me anymore. Everybody already knows. But I want my team to learn more about you. So you started out in the world of engineering. You were a finance officer. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was on Wall Street. I was working for Goldman Sachs and in the auditing department.
Okay.
Where, auditing, I never knew this before I actually entered the department, is that there's a IT auditing department there as well. And so you audit the technology, not just the financial books and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's where my career started out, when I was living in the East Coast, close to where you are. And yeah.
But now you're doing yoga and leadership counseling. So how does someone decide to make a pivot like that in their life? I mean, was there an actual, a moment where you can remember, I need to do things differently, or I need something different in my life?
Yes, there was actually. And so just a little bit of backstory, not too long here,
Please.
but before I started on Wall Street, I finished my engineering degree and my master's degree, and I finished one semester earlier than I had expected. And so I had 6 months to kill, and really, I was like, what do I do with this time? And I mean, the options were very simple: either stay at home and chill, start work early, make that request, or take some time to do something for me. And I ended up going to India and spending about 6 months there, studying at a university, not necessarily going for any sort of degree, but just learning about yoga, holistic health, and my own culture, because I was born in India, but never really got a chance to experience it. And so when I came back and started working and doing the things that people just were curious, like, hey, what is the thing that you learned that you went to India? Can you share some insight or teach? And so I ended up just teaching on the side. And I realized that, hey, this is more fun than what I'm doing right now. And so literally at some point I got this inclination, and I said, all right, I just got to go and pursue this. Otherwise, I'm going to regret it later on. And so overnight, I went from Goldman Sachs to Gold's Gym and started teaching.
That's very, very good. But you have a very unique way of approaching your leadership training. Can you define that a little bit more for us? I got to admit, when my team first connected us and was talking to me about having you on the pod, I loved learning about the different methodology that you have that pretty much anybody I have interviewed thus far has ever actually brought to me. So,
Yeah, and so for me, just because of my background, right? It's
right,
like your life gives you the breadcrumbs and you just go with it and so you don't stay hungry,
right, right, right.
And so I had this engineering background where it was more about processes and frameworks and
Yeah.
having a plan, so to speak. And then the yoga part of it, as I got into it, it was more about heart and presence and just being without even having to do anything.
Okay.
And at some point, there was a point in my career where I said, it's just not the yoga that's interesting for me. There's something more than just helping people with their physical challenges. It's more of the emotional and mental things that they're going through, and especially in the corporate world. And so I was like, how can I combine the best of both worlds? And that's where the training, the coaching, even the team building came through is that, you have to have the structure, but you also have to have the presence and the heart to combine and bring into that. And I feel like that's what leadership is about is yes, you can be the smartest person, but can you be the most present as well? Or you can be the most present, but do you have a plan
Right.
of where to go next? And so bringing both of these two together is where really my work kind of has come through at this point.
And how do you handle a culture, especially at the time you were saying you were coming into it, which was all about, the first one to the finish line, being the loudest, the best, and the brightest, to being to teaching people that they can sit back and I don't just be themselves and still succeed.
Yeah, well, I think people recognize it that when you're chasing something, you can get there first, but where's the fulfillment? After that, you're like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? Right? And then
Right.
there is that short-term fulfillment, but that longer-term satisfaction is gone. And so for me, convincing people and just talking to people and saying that, okay, sure, you can get there,
Yeah.
but what is it that really fulfilling? And how do you want to be seen as an individual within your company? How do you want to be perceived? How do you want to create influence? Is it by cracking the whip, or do you want people to actually respect you and do things because they want to do things for you, rather than just like a kid who's told to do something, and when they're in their school and they're just like, all right, I got to do it, because otherwise I get punished. And that's not really the way that people operate, or that they like to operate. And so for me, that was really the approach of, you can do this a different way.
Okay. And what kind of successes have you been seeing with this? I mean, that's a very broad question, of course, and I don't want you to name names, but can you give me an example of someone who went from the type A, always driving forward, pushing their team ahead, to figuring out that they can settle back and let things happen with them and for them, as opposed to forcing them?
Yeah, I mean, there have been many individuals, and one that comes to mind right now is that this one individual I was working with, he was putting almost 80 hours a week in his job. And
There are many
with that
people
comes
out
the
there, I'm sure.
consequences.
There are many people out there, I'm sure, right now going, yes, because that's what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And you think that's the way to go. And there's nothing, not one way is right or another, but there's consequences when you make different choices.
Yeah.
And so when he was doing this, he had 4 kids, and he was putting them as not as the top priority for him, which is, no, everybody's making their choices. Like,
Right.
so I said, so we just look at the choices and saying, okay, well, you're doing this, and this is not what's being given attention. So what do you want to choose? And once again, it's the choosing versus the chasing something.
Right.
And when we put it in that perspective, it was like, oh yeah, there is something that I feel like I need to do, or I want to do. And so it was then at that point setting boundaries. It was about, dedicate. It started out small of, okay, let's just set some boundaries around the time that you're spending. And then secondly, there was a day, like, okay, a Tuesday, every Tuesday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to shut my laptop off and not do anything, and making that commitment to himself. And so it started out that way, and then he realized, oh, I'm actually getting more done in the less time that I'm doing
Yeah.
things. And it's because you are more present. You become more focused,
Hmm.
and you don't feel like you have to just put in that face time in order to have that career growth for yourself. And that's
Amazing.
really the key.
That's amazing. And what about those people who feel like they can have it all? You know, those people that are like, I want the me time. I can be the best parent. I can be the best partner. I can also do the best work. The ones who are aiming for perfection in
Mhm.
everything that they do. First off,
Yeah.
what kind of traps are they setting for themselves along the way? And how is that affecting the people around them?
Yeah, the word that you use, perfection,
Mm,
is the key. I feel like we do live in a culture where you try to be perfect.
right.
And perfection oftentimes is not even a standard that we set for ourselves, but it's something that we look at others and saying, "Oh, that person's doing this," or as I was growing up, I saw there's that competition that kind of comes through, like, "Oh, that person's doing this or this person's doing this,
Right.
so I need to do this as well." And that competitiveness, yes, it's a driver. It certainly can
Sure.
move you into a direction.
Mm,
But that, well, like I said, when you choose something, there's also consequences of doing that. And when you're perfect and trying to achieve for perfection, you're very much in your head. You're not present as much.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's the distinction I try to bring to people, is that if you're striving for perfection, it's more likely that you're seeing something and your mind is completely focused on something that's external.
Okay.
And when you come back to presence, which is what I like to show the options for people, is that, hey,
Right.
when you come back to presence, there's something else that you can do and still be perfect in that presence.
Okay. And what kind of benefits could they expect to find? Because I know that there's got to be some people listening out there right now who are thinking, okay, it sounds great, but I'm succeeding now.
Mhm.
I'm climbing the corporate ladder. My family still says they're okay, even though I only see them on weekends or at dinner or just after dinner time or whatever it happens to be. I'm flashing back on my own childhood where my father left at 6 a.m. We weren't even up yet, and he didn't come back home till 6 p.m. And then after dinner, it was okay. You kids go do your homework. I don't want to talk to you for the rest of the night. I need to relax. So how how can we convince those people that it's worth taking a step back? What kind of
Mhm.
things can they experience that are going to tell them they're going in the right direction by taking a second?
Right. And that's a perfect example that you brought up. And it's the idea of, you know, when you plant a seed,
Hmm.
you don't see the value of it right now, but later on you'll see the result of it. And if you're using garbage components, so to speak, to plant around, you're gonna get garbage results.
There's that engineer
And
coming out.
yeah, and for people, we're so caught up on this short-term wins, and we define that as success. Like, okay, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
doing this right now, but later on, what's going to be the result of it? And you know, for many, myself included, I had similar parents who were working parents, and they, not nothing against them, but like, and so it's really about the long game, where if you plant something and you use ingredients that are not quality things, you'll get a result that shows up that is not high quality.
Okay.
And so similarly, that's the whole thing about what choices are you making now? And if you're looking for presence, then that time that you spent with and the connections that you make with people
Mm.
are going to show up. Maybe not in this moment, but it's going to show up later on. And so for people, even if you're in a leadership position, if you're a C-level person,
Right.
it gets quite lonely at the top for a lot of people.
I've
And
heard that somewhere. Yes.
for people, it's making those connections, being present with you folks, because the work is going to never stop.
Right.
But can you allow yourself to do the work in a way that is fulfilling, that you feel like you're there and not somewhere else, and you're creating the results that are down the line going to be something that's meaningful for you versus
Mm.
disappointing. And
Okay.
for folks, it's like, yes, we get so caught up in the short term game of like, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is I'm doing great right now, and we'll sacrifice it for later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the thing is if you take a moment to just ask yourself, like, what are your values? What do you really prioritize right now,
Mm.
and what's meaningful for you? Then you can make those choices that can lead you in the direction because you don't have to do the 80 hours. You don't have to be in a position where you're miserable.
Excellent.
And for a lot of people, that's surprising because it's like, well, I thought I had to sacrifice myself or I had to do things that
Yep.
are not enjoyable just so I can rise to in my within my organization. And
Right.
yes, that is one way. And if you choose to take that path, that's great. But there are other choices that you can make where it could be more fulfilling in the direction that you go in.
If you don't mind, I'd love to share a story at this point myself. My father, when he finally retired, um, he bought himself a $1 million house in the on the shores of New Jersey. You know, the resort community he always wanted to live in when he was growing up. Once he would drive us through when we were kids to be like, one day, Dad's going to live here, and we're all like, great. But he was 65, and I said to him, I was like, Dad, you should be really proud. This is everything you wanted for yourself, and you made it happen. And he looked right at me, and he goes, you may not remember this, but when you were a kid, I offered you a job. And I was like, I remember that. And he goes, and you turned me down flat. He goes, do you remember why? And I was like, yeah. I said, you come home miserable every night. Why would I want to do that to myself? And he looked at me, and he goes, I got to tell you, kid, you were right. Yes, I have what I thought I always wanted right now, but I was never happy. I would rather
Yeah,
have the 40 some years of happiness than this house. And I was
yeah.
like, first off, I was amazed that he could actually take that second to admit that vulnerability to me, which you could never do when we were young, my brother and sisters and I. But yeah, so that thing that you are missing is called your life. That just seems to be.
Totally. And such a beautiful moment that you got to share with your dad
It was.
around that.
It was. It was
And it's
unfortunate. It was one of the last that we got to share, unfortunately. But I'm glad we had it. I'm so glad we
yeah,
got to have that moment myself. Yeah.
yeah. Because that's you can break the cycle, right? And
Right.
and you decided to break that cycle because for many they continue to perpetuate. Oh, because so and so did it and so and so did it. I have to do
Yeah.
it this way as well.
Yep.
And you decided to break the cycle, which is great. And you chose your own path.
But let's talk about the ripples that come about from making that choice. What about the people you work with? If you are a member of the C-suite or even middle management, how does it affect the people around you that when you start having this realized the self-actualized way of living?
Well, you show up more human. I think that's the simple answer
Okay.
is that you don't see things in a transactional way where, okay, I'm here, you're here, you need to do this, I need to do this, and move on with it. And it works for certain situations, like when there's a common goal that you're working towards,
Uh-huh.
and transactional can be fine in those situations. But when there is a bigger purpose that you see for yourself and saying,
Right.
hey, I I see you, because people they don't want to work for folks that don't really see them or aren't.
True.
But when you can see individuals, when you can see people, they'll they'll go to bat for you at any given point. They'll say, you know what, I really love this. And that's what the conversations that I have with clients is that they share that, there's this one manager I remember.
Mm.
And the reason why they remember that manager or that person that stood out for them is because they actually felt seen by that person. And they said, I would work for that manager in a heartbeat. If
Mm.
for whatever reason, they moved on or something happened, but people remember that. And there are others that, you don't want to be that manager that just made people miserable because once again, it's
Every guest I've had has said the exact same thing. The reason people quit, the reason they leave what could still be a very successful company, is because of management.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
anything, you're going to get them to stay a little longer.
Yeah, exactly. And think about what it does, like you said, what it does for the people around you, the morale around you, the tone that you're setting for people. And you have influence. If you're even in middle management, I mean, I feel like it's the hardest role to be in because you have to manage up and manage down.
Right.
But it's you have influence, and most people don't think they do in that way. So when you come back to is important for you, and like I said, just be present with the things that are around you, that influence is is almost like it builds to a greater extent. A lot more people feel it, and a lot
Right.
more people experience that, oh, this person is truly somebody I like to work with.
Plus, hopefully, it'll be teaching through example
Hmm.
because you're going to move on eventually if everything's successful. And that means somebody you have been training gets to move up to the place and hopefully do the same thing you did.
Yeah, and I remember a manager that I had, uh, loved him because
Hmm.
we had the smallest team within the organization, and our team would always kind of be ignored or,
Hmm.
kind of seen as like, oh, it's just like you guys over there. And he would, make us visible. He would allow us to give those opportunities. And even when things were not pleasant, he would shield the team from that.
Hmm.
And I recognize that, wow, he didn't have to do all that, but he did it because he cared and
Hmm.
he saw the impact of how, for us to be visible, what that can do for us.
How then do we make sure we don't say backslide? And I know that I mean I've been a Zen practitioner since I was in my 20s, so it is very easy to just have bad days where I can't quiet my mind, I can't get out of my own way. I imagine when you're in the corporate world, things like, always wanting to be the one that seems to have the answer, or here I am, I have been living this way. I have been doing my best to make sure that I'm in the moment, that I'm here for the people that are under me and the people who are above me. I'm doing everything that I think I'm doing correctly, but I'm still not getting anywhere. I have stalled.
Hmm.
So, how do we keep these people grounded and in the moment, but still allow them to have goals to achieve for?
Yeah. And this is human life. We have the ups and downs,
Yep.
and I think what's most important for people is recognizing that don't fight it.
Okay.
Don't resist the failures in a way that it puts you in a spiral of shame or guilt or these emotions that will tear you apart, that or that inner critic that will come across.
Hmm.
And that's what I tell folks, like, if something is happening, I'm sure it's happening because it's trying to teach you something or show you something better.
Okay.
And if, for example, there was this individual who's so caught up on to-do lists
Mm.
that I was working with. And for whatever reason, they had to get their to-do list
Yep.
done.
Yep.
And so I asked them, like, what is it that is important for you? What is it that do you see it as a failure when you don't make it? And he said, yeah, yeah. If I don't get this to-do list done, or if I don't get these things done that I have on my, then I'm going to feel like I failed.
Mm.
And so then I asked him, like, so why do you think it's there in the first place? Why is this list there?
Right.
And so he found out, just through that exploration that, as somebody who was always expected to do good and to do great, and in a culture where a 98% wasn't good enough,
Right.
there was that pressure to constantly always be on. And so for somebody in that way, if it's a failure, what he learned from it in this example is that he burned his to-do list and said that, all right, I'm going to do the things that are meaningful. One, because it's fulfilling, and then secondly, when you're in that energy of excitement and doing things because you feel inspired and compelled to do something, time stops in so many ways. You consider it this way: if you were to take two paths,
Right.
the quick path where it was just painful, like going up a mountain. If I live in the mountains here, and if you go straight up, it's the most painful way to get up to
Right.
the top,
Right.
but you get there in the shortest distance.
Right.
However, there's a reason why there's so many like these
Windings.
switchbacks that you sometimes
Yes.
see on mountain roads is because they go back and forth, back and forth. It's a longer distance, but it's a much more easier and much more scenic route
Right.
to get there. And that's the idea, is that don't see that one way of doing things or that one failure as a way that really is an obstacle, but see it as an opportunity to see what are my other choices, what are my other paths that I can create from this opportunity here.
This sounds amazing, and it sounds like it's an excellent exploration, especially for people who don't know how to take care of themselves. But what about taking care of others as well? Because that manager needs to make sure that the people under them feel trusted, feel seen, like you had said, and still have what they need to be able to take care of themselves as much as you are. How can we? I guess what I'm trying to say is, what's the best balance? Is it better to make sure you're still taking care, that you're taking care of yourself over others, or is there a way to basically make sure that everybody is working together to be whole?
Yeah, and these are situations where it's more in the moment of like a lot of things can come up.
Sure.
So one is that, you know, are you taking responsibility for other people's happiness, right? That's
Yeah.
one whole different idea. And then
Right.
the other
Right.
thing is around agreements. What are the agreements that you make with people, whether the ones reporting to you and the ones
That you're reporting to.
that
Yeah.
you report to.
Exactly.
And so there's a play of a lot of different factors where there's boundaries, there's agreements, there's responsibility, there's, what are the things that you're doing unconsciously. And so, case in example is that if you're doing something because you're people pleasing, you know, yes, you might get the result that you want in
Right.
doing so, but are you gaining the respect with that result that
Right.
you're getting, right? And so for people, this is it's not about, there's no one right way. That's the thing, is
Right.
that individually, what's working for you, what can you find fulfilling for yourself, and making the choices that you do. And when you're in that place, then it's like you know when you see somebody doing, even, let's say, I remember like a barista at a coffee shop. They're just enjoying what they're doing. They're not managing anybody, or
Right.
they're not leading anybody, but they're just enjoying what they're doing. And as a customer, you feel great. Like, you want to be served by this person. And because they're doing with the things that they're truly enjoying. And so stepping away from doing things because it's always been done this way, doing things because the culture expects it this way, and doing things because you define the culture and you start creating the path that works for you. And so there, like, to answer that question in a short way, is that there is no one right answer, but everybody has to do that exploration for themselves and saying, oh, what matters most to you?
Nice.
And are you sacrificing yourself for success?
Okay.
And if that's fine with you, great. If it's not, then what are you going to do about it, and to make that choice for yourself?
Okay. Now I got to ask Mitesh, because this has been coming up a lot more recently in the podcast with other guests. How does this help with empathy? because a lot of what I am hearing from past guests that we've had is managers seem to have lost that connection to other people. That empathic, I know what you're going through, or I can at least sympathize with what you're going through. You know, when somebody under you is not producing, instead of just immediately going, you're not producing, get your bleep in gear and let's get going, to, okay, what's going on with you that you're not producing? So how does this methodology help them in that kind of connection with with another human being?
Yeah. So it's the same thing, right? Of, what you sow is what you reap. And
Right.
so when you're sowing in this opportunity to see somebody and to recognize and have that 5 minute conversation or maybe 10-minute conversation with somebody and saying, hey, I'm noticing, and using not judging them and saying, hey, why are
Right.
you so this? But hey, I'm noticing that the work seems to be very heavy for you these days. What's going on? You know, and see what they say, see what they respond with. And sometimes the shields may be up, and
Right.
and just lead with curiosity. So that's one of the principles I like to have people look through, is that just be curious. Don't assume that you know what the answer is, and keep asking those questions. Dig 2 to 3 layers deep of why. Well, why is this? Why is the work feeling heavy? And they might say, well, it's feeling heavy because I'm just not feeling my best. Tell
Okay.
me why? What's not allowing you to feel too good? And they may eventually you get to the answer of what's really at the core of this person's challenge. And then when you're able to get there, and just by touching it and not even trying to solve it, a lot of it gets released because they feel seen, they feel like they have the space to share, and you automatically see them and they feel respect with you as well. So it's that mutual respect that gets given, and it honestly can happen in a 10-minute conversation
Fantastic.
and nothing more than that.
Good. We're just at the point where we're going to wrap up. But before we do, and I do not want you to give away the store here, people are going to need to reach out to you to get a full, more clear understanding for them personally as to what this can look like. But how do we help a listener begin tomorrow? If they're listening to this on the car ride home today, how can we allow them, what skill can we teach them right now to give even just a second of presence in their day?
Yeah, and I think the one thing that you can do immediately is to take a breath, just breathe in, and just feel that experience of it, and take another breath, and take another breath, and just notice what are your thoughts that are going on. If you can get to a place of just recognizing the chain of, and kind of just breaking the chain of thoughts
Right.
that we're circling all the time. A breath is a great way to break those chain of thoughts. And that's one of the things that start out with first. Like if you find that you're so overwhelmed and you're facing burnout and you're facing all these like mental stress, the reason why people ask to breathe is that it helps to just physically break
Yeah.
that cycle of thoughts,
Yeah.
and start there. And then choose, remember, instead of trying to be overwhelmed with something, choose what is the thought that I want to have? What is the thing I want to focus on now? And this gives you a bit of a reset to do that.
Nice. Excellent. Thank you very much. Mitesh Kapadia, everybody. Give him a big round of applause. Thank you so much, Mitesh. Is there a way, if my team wanted to learn more about you or this methodology, like that you can recommend for them to go?
Right. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, or find my website is leadwithconsciousness.com,
Nice.
and that's where I reside, and mostly just sharing wisdom. And so on LinkedIn is a really good way, because every day I'm posting pretty much and just sharing different nuggets, insights around what I'm noticing, what I'm seeing, client examples, and it's a great way to also connect. So if you find me through this podcast, hey, we found you through the podcast, and this is a great way to just know
Excellent.
how you found it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I got to tell you, I loved this. I thought this was a fantastic conversation. It is so rare. I get my own inner Zen brought back up to me. So thank you very much, my friend. This was wonderful.
And just loving your presence and energy too, Rich. I mean,
Thank you, man.
you're quite real, and that's what makes this conversation awesome. And as I've just gotten to know you for a little bit here, I can just see the level of care that you take for the work that you do, and really just
Thank you.
making it so comfortable for all of us that whoever comes onto this episode, this podcast, to just make it a great experience. So thank you.
That means the world. Thank you very, very much. I do try that. Thank you. I hope you continue to feel that way, though, because you might have forgotten I told you it is time for my speed round.
Man, all right. Well, I spoke too soon, Hope.
Oh, just to remind you and everybody out there, what's going to happen is for 60 seconds, I'm going to play some music. While I do, I'm going to ask you just a series of rather silly, innocuous questions, very simple questions. If you are feeling at all competitive, because this is a game, we have gone up to 17 questions asked and answered in 60 seconds.
Okay.
Okay? So if you're feeling up to it, great. Don't feel like you have to push.
This is where I take a breath to just focus on my goals for a second. Getting that number 18.
All right. All right, let's see if we can do it together. That's the important thing, is we're going to get there together. Whenever you hear the music, I'm going to ask the first question. Away we go. What's your name?
Mitesh.
How many children do you have?
2.
Which one's your favorite?
Both.
Nice. Your favorite go-to vacation spot?
Hawaii.
Biggest inspiration and why?
My yoga teacher.
Nice.
Because he just shows simplicity in action.
Favorite TV series of all time?
24.
Favorite guilty pleasure TV series?
It's an Indian TV show called Panchayat.
Nice. Favorite way to stay creative?
Be in nature.
Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
Do you have a favorite go-to karaoke song?
No, I don't do karaoke.
That's okay. First job you ever had?
Working at a pharmacy, dispensing pills.
Wow. Something on your bucket list?
Oh man, that was a tough one. Being able to connect with animals.
Excellent.
Deeply.
Okay. 13, buddy. You got 13.
All right, well.
That's actually, no, it's great. It's great. I mean, I even fumbled myself there for a second, but it does happen. Remember, the whole point is you got to forgive yourself and just let it go.
Yeah, it's about the experience, knowing that, hey, this was good. It allowed me to check in on things that I've been putting off.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mitesh.
Thank you again, Rich, and really a pleasure to be here and truly enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.